Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in again. Today is Sunday, July 16th. It is 1 p.m., and this is the Skill Building Sunday Drawing Group here on the Reinventing the Tattoo Network. I am your host, Jason Leeser, and please do me a favor. While we get this all set up and running, please go through, tag a friend who loves tattoos, hit that like button, maybe drop a comment in the chat box. Let me know that everything's working all right and that you guys can hear me and you can see me all right. It just helps make sure that I'm not talking to dead air. And thank you for joining us. And welcome to Guy Aitchison's Reinventing the Tattoo Community, where tattooers, apprentices, collectors, and the curious are encouraged to join in these live streams, real world events, to share and inspire and ultimately create better art and tattoos together. We beam out nearly every day, and with your help have evolved into a quality network of amazing live and on-demand tattoo and art shows that have all been receiving rave reviews. You can find Reinventing the Tattoo in both of the app stores, the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store, as well as our Reinventing the Tattoo YouTube channel, our Reinventing the Tattoo Roku channel, which has 12 to 15 different episodes going at any given time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you can find Reinventing the Tattoo in all of the major podcast directories, such as Apple and Spotify. Or you can do what most people usually do and just search for Reinventing the Tattoo, and you'll find it all. Except for the book, which is out of print. Still trying to get my hands on a copy, so please let me know if you come across one. It'd be a great help. But no matter where you want to watch live or on demand, you can always get the latest and greatest, most up-to-date information at www.reinventingthetattoo.com. You can try it out for free. You can pick one of three options. We have a sample webinar from the Reinventing the Tattoo canon, which is absolutely excellent. Or you can get some free advice from Guy Aitchison about your unique goals. Or you can take a comprehensive tattoo history course from Jay Brown, which is absolutely awesome. If you're like me and you're a tattoo nerd, take a look at the course from Jay Brown. It's absolutely amazing. At reinventingthetattoo.com, you can also find a full event schedule with full weekly and special event live stream details if you decide to join one of our special events. You can also find access to the Reinventing 24/7 channel, which is a lot like our Roku channel. It's got 13 different episodes playing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as well as a whole host of professional development courses from over 20 world-class tattoo artists, all available at www.reinventingthetattoo.com. Once again, if this is working, looks like we have one person that commented, all good here. Awesome. Please go through, tag a friend who loves tattoos. Maybe it's someone who wants to become a tattoo artist. Maybe it's someone that just wants to become a better artist in general. We welcome all types and all styles of art here. We're not strictly just for tattooing. So by all means, please tag whoever else you want. We have a number of weekly staple shows that we always encourage people to tune into, starting on Sundays at 1 p.m. with me, Jason Leeser, in the Skill Building Sunday Drawing Group. And today's episode is followed by 3 different shows that take place on Mondays. Starting off on Mondays at 9 a.m., we have Drawing for Tattooers with James Wisdom, where we get back to our basic fundamental drawing techniques and strategies. Maybe we explore some more in-depth art principles, or maybe we have discussions about fine art and what makes fine art. It's absolutely phenomenal. I try to join every chance I get. So I may be jumping in here and there, but it's an absolutely phenomenal class. Highly recommend it. And that's 9 a.m. on Monday mornings, Drawing for Tattooers with James Wisdom. Following the 9 a.m. Live stream, we have another live stream at 5 p.m. on Mondays, and that's Let's Talk About Feelings with Robbie Ripple, where we go through and we get to kind of vent and talk about some of these things that, maybe we can't really talk to a whole lot of other people about that aren't in the industry, that don't really know some of the challenges that we face day to day. This is a perfect place to go to kind of vent, let loose, Talk about the things that are going on in your life and how they make you feel. It's not very often discussed in the tattoo trade, but it's very helpful to have an outlet such as that. Capping off Monday nights at 9 p.m., we have a subscribers exclusive drawing group with Sandy McAndrew, where we go through and we cover different parts of the Reinventing the Tattoo canon. It's absolutely phenomenal. You do need to have a subscription to either the Reinventing the Tattoo canon or the Reinventing the Tattoo evolution course. You need to have one or the other in order to participate in the Monday night sessions. But I'm telling you from personal experience right now, those Monday night sessions alone are worth whatever price you might pay. We go through, we cover different parts of the Reinventing the Tattoo canon, and we really try to work on it to reinforce what's being talked about in those chapters. Thursdays at 6 p.m., we have the Tattoo Collecting 101 podcast, which is also broadcast here with Fawn Baker, where we go through and we get to talk about different topics, including what it's like to be a tattoo collector and some of our journeys in tattoo collecting. We do have a special event coming up in October, and that is the Paradise Tattoo Gathering. That will be taking place again this year, Thursday, October 12th through Sunday, October 15th. And for those of you that might be familiar with the Paradise Gathering, this is going to be the first year since the pandemic where it is back and up to full strength, where we are back with an absolutely stellar lineup of artists that will be presenting this year, including Nick Baxter and Corey Ferguson, Gunner, Thea Duskin, Andy Chambers, really excited for that one. Jake Meeks from the Fireside Tattoo Network will be there. Tom Strom will be there, and Andre Malcolm as well, just to name a few of the artists that will be presenting this year at the Paradise Tattoo Gathering. I'd like to go through and take a quick minute to thank some of our sponsors, some of the people that make these shows happen, starting off with worldtattooevents.com, the largest, most comprehensive resource for tattoo events worldwide. As we know, living in this post-pandemic era, there are certain tattoo conventions and events that are still getting rescheduled. So if you want the latest, most up-to-date information on a tattoo event or convention coming to a city or town near you, or maybe it's one that you want to visit, never know, I use it all the time for this, go to worldtattooevents.com and you can find a full, current, up-to-date list of tattoo events anywhere in the world. Highly recommend it. It's an absolutely phenomenal website and a great resource. Would also like to say thank you to tattoonow.com, technology for tattooers. This is the leading edge in professional development, management, and digital tools for tattoo artists of all levels. They're constantly keeping everything upgraded and updated. They're competitive with any type of CRM, mailing list, or scheduling software out there. So if you're looking for some digital tools to get more clients to come into your studio that want to get the kind of work that you really want to do, take a look at tattoonow.com. This is where you go for those tools that will really help you get a better client base that wants to get the kind of work that you really want to do. And of course, this wouldn't be Reinventing the Tattoo without a very personal and professional, heartfelt thank you to Guy Aitchison at guyaitchison.com. He is the founder and inspiration behind Reinventing the Tattoo. You can go to guyaitchison.com where you can pick up a copy of his biomech encyclopedias, some of his custom DVDs. He's got some custom coil machines for sale as well as every now and then you'll see him post some original oil paintings, or you can get some fine art prints, all at guyaitchison.com. Would also like to say a very special thank you to one of our affiliates, and that is the Apprenticeship Diaries with Amy Nichols. Amy and I have been friends for a few years now, met her at the Paradise BYOB. And if you're looking for information on what it takes to get a tattoo apprenticeship, what it would be like during a tattoo apprenticeship, or any other information on maybe, best practices if you're an apprentice, take a look at the Apprenticeship Diaries with Amy Nichols. She also has a podcast. It's absolutely phenomenal. Highly recommend it. Can't say enough good things about it. Would also like to say a very personal thank you and shout out to TATCOM and Aaron Williams, who is the mad scientist at TATCOM. TATCOM is literally going through and diving into the science of tattooing to help build equipment for tattoo artists to help them tattoo at a better, more effective level. If you're looking for the latest innovations in tattoo equipment and tattoo technology, TATCOM will be that source. Every time I talk to those guys, my mind is completely blown with new information, new perspectives, and new science that they have to back up everything that they talk about. So if you're looking for the latest products and the latest tech, go take a look at TATCOM. These guys are literally the cutting edge in everything tattoo technology. We ask that if you like today's show, please go through, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button down at the bottom of the page. Make sure to give us a positive review, drop a comment, help us get the word out. If you would like to host a Reinventing the Tattoo event or become a sponsor of our community, or if you're looking for a fine art or a tattoo critique, you can always email management@reinventingthetattoo.com. We'll get back to you just as soon as we can. That kind of wraps it up for our intro today. Let's see. Good. We've got Lee with us in the YouTube chats. How's it going, Lee? Hope you're doing well today. I'm back, and we may have Seth Mushrush join us again today. I know he's pretty busy at the studio, so I'm not going to guarantee that. Don't know if anyone else will be joining us today. But I did want to go through and talk about a different type of topic, and that's staying inspired. It's difficult sometimes to stay inspired, come up with new ideas, and really push yourself to constantly draw all the time. And it's hard to find that inspiration sometimes. I'm going through a period of time right now where it's like everything I'm drawing is just not falling into place. I'm getting all my appointments done and getting everything drawn out for them. But as far as it comes down to my own artwork and the things that, I like to do for myself to really advertise what I'm capable of, sometimes it's really tricky and really difficult to go through and really kind of push yourself every day just to draw a little bit of something new for you. And some people struggle with inspiration. And I've got a few key ways that I go through and I tackle that, and we'll probably be discussing that here for a little bit. Let me get my iPad set up so I can sketch along, and you guys can follow along with me if you're interested. Wonderful. So one of the ways that I like to go through and constantly try to keep myself inspired, some of it's social media and seeing what other people are doing. And I know I try not to live on social media. I have, Instagram and Facebook, and I even have a TikTok, but I'm almost never on TikTok just because for me, it's a black hole of time that I would rather spend trying to be productive. It's a good place to go for inspiration, not a problem. But I find that when you get too involved in social media, it can be a bit tricky, if that makes any sense, because you don't want to go through and live your life around social media. But things like Instagram can be good to help you become inspired, especially if you follow a lot of non-tattoo artists. A lot of times I'll go to non-tattoo artists and I'll look at their work, their paintings, sculptures, carvings, maybe whatever it is they're doing. And I'll look at that and I'll think to myself, okay, that's a really cool concept, right? Like, just all kinds of, like, maybe having a snake coming out of the middle of a flower. That's always cool. Maybe it's a different way someone decides to render something or sketch something. You can always get more inspiration just by going through and looking outside of your normal comfort zone, right? Lately, I've been looking at a lot of like pouring acrylic pour paintings and just staring at those for a little while and seeing what I can get out of that. And then from there, I stumbled onto some fractal art, which was absolutely mind blowing with the level of details and just the way that you can adjust a fractal pattern to get it to look differently. It was phenomenal. Um, and then I kind of sat back and thought about that, and I was like, oh, that's a cool shape, that's a cool pattern. Ooh, maybe that would be interesting, to do something along those lines. But it's always good to go through and try to find inspiration. Maybe it's through talking to some of your coworkers. If you're working at a studio, it's one of the benefits of working with other artists is that you can always help keep each other inspired at all times just by going through and maybe seeing what they're working on. Maybe asking for a little bit of advice, like, hey, how did you, render that? Or what kind of a technique are you going to use to execute this? Maybe it's just a different way that you can stay inspired. Maybe, you try to stay off social media altogether, which is totally fine. If you're the kind of person that avoids all social media for whatever reason, not a problem. It's very easy. You can go through and see if you can find old copies of magazines, or maybe subscribe to art news, or I mean, there's Imagine FX is a great source of inspiration. I always like to go through and take a look at some of that stuff for more inspirational purposes as well. And you can also find a lot of really great tutorials and information on there that can really help you, maybe bridge the gap and maybe find a little bit of inspiration. I've been known in the past to kind of default and fall back to flowers, which is exactly what I'm sketching out today. I find myself drawing a lot of flowers if I'm uninspired, or a lot of Japanese waves, some Japanese dragons. But it's usually like a standard topic or a standard subject matter that I constantly find myself falling back on whenever I'm feeling uninspired, but I know I need to keep my hand moving. And that's okay. It's okay to have standard subjects that you fall back on. The trick is to constantly keep your hand moving and constantly keep yourself just making art. The inspiration will come. It will. And trust me, out of all of the years I've been making art, digitally, analog, you name it, there's always a period of time that I have found that, I'm going to become uninspired in anything. Maybe I won't want to do this. Maybe I won't want to, work out anymore. Or maybe I just want to sit back and watch some movies. And that's okay. It's okay to have periods of time like that. And it's okay to feel uninspired every day. The trick is to push through it. Keep your hand moving. Keep yourself creating. Doesn't Maybe you pick up a new medium. Maybe you see something and you're like, oh, well, I've already done this as a painting in this medium. Maybe I'll try it in a different medium. And you don't have to share it with anyone. You know, your art can be just your art. There's nothing out there that says, you need to frame it and publish it and, all types of other stuff. Sometimes making art just for yourself is the best course to take. It can really help you kind of get back on that trail of inspiration. It can help you find new ways to do things, and then that can trigger new inspiration. Um, there's always ways out there and always things out there that you can explore that you've never done before. maybe, like I said, I work in a lot of different mediums. I work in everything from chalk and charcoal to pencil to oils to acrylics to watercolors and liquid acrylics, graphic markers. I'll even fall back and do some colored pencil renderings every now. There's always something new to pick up somewhere along the line. And the trick is, once again, just keep your hand moving, just keep pushing. Because as you do that, everything will fall into place. It happens. And if you find yourself just absolutely stuck in a rut and you've been trying to push through it for so long, it's just not happening and you don't know what to do, one of the best things you can do is take some time, go to an art museum, look around, and look at different styles of paintings that are done, or look at different sculptures and try to find something that resonates with you. Finding that resonance of, hey, I don't know why, but I really feel connected to this Monet landscape, or maybe they've got a Renoir exhibit going on, or maybe it's one of the old Dutch masters, like a Vermeer that is on special loan from another museum somewhere. You can always find inspiration whenever you go to an art museum. If you're really, really struggling to go through and really trying to find, that one thing that just picks you back up, that thing that picks you back up will be pushing through everything that you're doing. I've been doing this for quite some time, and I've always found that if I just stick with it, maybe switch a medium or switch a mindset and say, okay, well, you know what? I'm not coming up with any new concepts. Let me draw some things in a different way, right? I draw flowers a lot. There's nothing wrong with that. For me, a lot of times it's like, oh, cool, a rose. How can I draw a rose differently? How can I do this thing, but do it different? And then sometimes that can inspire you. And even if it doesn't inspire you, at least you've got a different style that you can now achieve. Sometimes it takes a lot more work and a lot more sketching and a lot more whatever to do that, to accomplish it, but it does work. I'm absolutely 100% adamant about the fact that, yeah, sometimes I'm uninspired, but I will keep pushing through. I will keep doing everything I can to keep my hand busy, because it's when we stop moving our hands and when we kind of give up for a little while and say, yeah, I'm not really feeling it right now. That's probably the time when we need to push ourselves even harder. It can seem very daunting and it can seem overwhelming, and you're probably not going to be happy with anything that you produce during that point in time, but that's okay. Because even if you're not happy with anything you produce during that period of time, it doesn't matter. No one has to see it. You know, that's the beautiful thing about art. I know plenty of artists that are out there that create art all the time, but they absolutely hate. They don't like it. They're not inspired by it. They don't think it's any good. They can pick out every flaw and they're hypercritical of everything. And that just kind of comes with being an artist. You're going to be critical, but they keep pushing and they keep doing it. And what ends up happening is lightning will strike, hopefully not literally. If it does, well, then you've got bigger concerns. But lightning will strike, inspiration will strike, and then they'll be like, oh yeah, let me put down this thing that I was just doing basically to pass the time and keep my hand busy, because now I got this idea, now I got this thought, and now I know what I need to do. Now I know what I need to draw. Now I know that, okay, well, since I wasn't really too thrilled with this one anyway, that's cool. I'm going to scrap it and I'm going to move on to this project that I just became inspired by. But at least I know my hand is still moving and I'm still working towards a goal, which is to become a better artist. Hopefully that wasn't too much of a mouthful there. Hopefully that wasn't too much of a rant, but it's something that I find to be very important is to go through and let yourself know that, hey, it's okay to not be inspired all the time, because it's something that I struggle with quite frequently, believe it or not. Every now and then something will happen, and I'll get that strike of inspiration, and then I become absolutely obsessed with whatever it is, and I'll literally work that topic to death. At one point in time, a few years ago, I was struggling drawing snakes. So I spent the better part of 3 years breaking them down, drawing them all the time, trying to figure out, okay, well, if I wanted to draw a snake head in this perspective or in this way, how would I do it? If I wanted to draw a snake with a closed mouth as opposed to an open mouth, how would I do it? How would I go through and draw the underbelly of a snake, or get better at scale work, or any number of different things? How can I get the body to move in a different direction so it doesn't look static like everything else I've drawn? Um, I spent a lot of time just drawing snakes, day in, day out, day in, day out. Basically, I was a broken record because that's all I wanted to draw, and that's all I wanted to do, because it was a challenge. That's another way that you can find inspiration. Start working on things that you need to improve upon. For me, it was anatomy. I spent, quite a bit of time as well. When I realized that, hey, maybe my anatomy isn't up to par, that's okay. That's totally fine. Now I know what I need to work on. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to work on it some more. Maybe I'll revisit drawing snakes every now and then just to keep it fresh in my head. But for the most part, I've moved on from that. You know, I'm not saying I couldn't get better at it. We can always get better at whatever it is we want to do. That potential is there, and that potential will never go away. We can always improve. We are perpetual students. Um, that I'm a huge advocate of that. It's something I pride myself on, is the fact that I know for a fact I don't know everything. I know that, and I can admit that. I'm not afraid to admit that. There's a lot of stuff out there I don't know. And maybe some of the stuff out there that I think I know, maybe I don't really know it as well as I do. And that's okay, because I'm always willing to learn more. I had a very wonderful discussion with one of my clients the other day about what's going on over in Ukraine. And, it was enlightening. Just their perspective on everything that was going on, because they were from that part of the world. And, it was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Just hearing their perspective about, oh, well, if this happens, then maybe this, but, you know, then if that happens, then you've got this going on. So it was really kind of inspiring. Another way, if you can afford to, and it's not something that everyone can afford to do, but if you can afford to, another way that you can always find inspiration is travel, right? Go to another country. Go to worldtattooevents.com, pick a country that you want to go to, or maybe you've heard really good things about a show like Gods of Ink in April out in Frankfurt, Germany. You want to talk about an inspiring convention to go to? That's one to go to. It's like the World Cup of tattoo. It's the top 2% of artists in the world that get invited to work at that show. It's absolutely incredible. Maybe you want to take a trip to Paris, go to the Paris Tattoo Convention. That's always a great one. Maybe Hell City's right around the corner. Go take a look at Hell City. Maybe you've heard great things about it, and you hear it's one of the best conventions in the US, which it absolutely is. Very tricky to get into, but once you're in, which is awesome. Hopefully things work out this year and I'll be able to get a booth. But we'll see. But that's, another thing to consider, another thing to think about is, well, maybe you go to a tattoo convention. Go network with other artists that, work in a style or do something that you want to get better at. Maybe you want to get better at black and gray realism, right? Cool. Find a black and gray realism artist that you are really, really inspired by. Maybe send them an email and just see, identify yourself as an artist and just see if you can stop by. Say hi, maybe, take a look and observe their process for a little bit, because just by doing that, sometimes it can be inspiring. Maybe you reach out to your network of artists that you've made over the years, and you stop by and you talk with them and you see what they're currently working on. Maybe something there can inspire you. So you never really know. There's all kinds of avenues for that kind of inspiration. Um, a lot of it, in my opinion, just comes down to putting your nose to the grindstone. Just keep at it, keep going, and it will come. I don't know if you guys agree with me or not. If you do me a favor in the YouTube and just drop a comment in the chat box. Let me know some of the techniques and tricks that you use to stay inspired. And, maybe we can go through and explore some of those topics. Maybe you guys have some ideas that I've never heard of. I know certain artists that I know of like to use a word bank, and they'll try to find words that you wouldn't ever imagine hearing go together, right? And they'll draw something up based on something, words or concepts that you could never imagine, right? You could never even possibly comprehend. Um, I came across a fantastically executed tattoo the other day of a bearded raptor. Um, it was absolutely fascinating. Bearded, like, who would ever think of putting a beard on a raptor? I wouldn't have. I would have never thought that those words would ever go together in any kind of a sentence. So, maybe go with a word bank. Try like I don't know, uh, mm, plumber, squid, and hat, right? Who knows? Maybe it's I don't know, crackhead shark. You never know. I there's all different kinds of ways out there that you can kind of expand on what you're doing. Um, these are just some of the key ways that I have found to stay constantly inspired and to keep my hand constantly busy, so that I know I'm always working towards that goal of becoming a better artist. Um, maybe it's taking a different approach to your sketching. Maybe it's taking and examining your line work and what you're doing when you're creating your line work. Maybe it's going through and saying, you know what, everything I do has a lot of hard lines. Maybe I want to go through and start using less hard lines and just more pure shading. That can work. That can be inspiring. Or maybe you try to draw a traditional rose without any big, thick black lines. Why not? Maybe it doesn't inspire you, but it can lead to that inspiration, right? Um, for me personally, there's always something more to work on, and there's always something more that I want to be better at. Um, Sometimes it's value, sometimes it's perspective, sometimes it's, just trying to go through and, working with a specific shape or a specific area of the body that it's like, okay, well, if maybe I've got a client that comes in and they want something, undersea in this area. What could I put there? How could I draw something up that would fit that kind of an area? It's just little key things here and there that can really, really change everything that you do. So I always encourage people, go through, just keep drawing, keep pushing through it. You'll get there. It'll happen. It's a matter of time. Um, you know, maybe you need to think outside the box a little. Maybe you need to get back to your fundamentals. You never know. Sometimes I'll start off with just a circle and a sphere and I'll just see what I feel like drawing that day. Um, you know, I find a lot of things are based off of or contain some type of circular base shape. I mean, everything from flowers to dragon's heads, you can probably find a circle in there somewhere. Um, I mean, Lord knows I start off almost all my drawings with a circle. So it's just one of many ways that you can go through and maybe find something in common. Um, I've never been an advocate of how was it once put to me, street corner pharmaceuticals. I've never been an advocate of that, so I usually don't go that route when it comes down to finding inspiration. Um, I actually actively try to avoid that, just because to me it's almost counterproductive, right? And I'm not saying it can't bring you some cool ideas and help you think outside the box or whatever. It's just never been, a way that I enjoy doing things. Maybe you enjoy it, by all means do it, but it's just, I like to stay focused and I like to go into something, even this sketch, I like to go into it with a goal or a concept or a body placement in mind. Um, I've been working on sketching out some stuff for a full female back piece, like full body suit, female layout. Well, I've run into a lot of issues with, okay, what am I going to do? Imagine you had a client that came to you and said, "Hey, love your work, love the way that you do everything. Um, here is an entire back for you to work with. You can do whatever you want." What would you do? It can be extremely overwhelming, especially when you've got that much open area with no direction to go in. So maybe challenge yourself in that aspect. Go through and maybe, I don't know, maybe try to say, okay, well, if I were to have someone come in that had that much available room and want whatever I wanted to do, what would I do? That's where having things like, you know, a discussion with a client or a consultation can come in handy. I use that trick a lot because it's like, okay, cool. Let's start looking at concepts. What do you want this to mean? Do you want it to have a certain meaning? Do you just want it to look cool, which is totally fine? Because as tattoo artists, we have come to understand that, believe it or not, some tattoos don't need to have a meaning. They don't, because everyone gets tattooed for different reasons. And like I've explained this to plenty of clients before. I get tattooed for a very different reason than most people. For me, my tattoos aren't necessarily about like what I'm getting tattooed. A lot of the time, it's more for me about an experience or a trip, or maybe I'm getting tattooed by a specific person to learn from that person. Um, you know, so at that point in time, because you're getting tattooed for that kind of a reason, does the subject matter really count? Does it really matter what you get tattooed if you're basically just there to learn from a person? You know, these are all like thoughts that I have on a regular basis. So yeah, I think a little bit out there. Um, by All American Indian Star Strike, thank you for the YouTube comment. Really appreciate it. And I'm not too happy with the way that part's turning out, so I'm actually going to go through and add a new layer. and just see if I can draw this any different. I'm going to start off with some loose circles, and I'm just drawing a little peony sketch, nothing crazy. Start out with a small circle there. It's not exactly a circle, but close enough for what we need. Here. Here. Oval shape because it's going to be effective. Another oval shape. Sketch, I like to try to keep it pretty loose and then refine from there. But I like to draw with a lot thinner lines. This way I can help it automatically goes through and helps me create value and harder edges. It's just something I've picked up on that, you know, it's something I enjoy, something part of my process. There are certain people out there that will go through and they'll block in with a bigger, lighter brush. I like to use a lot of smaller lines to kind of rough things in. It's just my own personal preference. It's nothing crazy. Maybe I'll do here. We'll make this guy a little bit smaller. Here. It's 2 layers of petals with like one more guy that should help the eye move in a very kind of tapered way. Start to perform. As well, if anyone out there ever has any questions, by all means, feel free to ask. I'm always down for helping people if they encounter any kind of an issue or any kind of a struggle. If there's anything I can do to help, I'm always down to try to assist people in whatever way I can. You'll do. Little guy over here. Here. Now, I don't know if anything will ever come of this drawing or this sketch. I'm not really super concerned about it. Maybe I'll just keep it on hand for a later date and time to kind of go through and say, okay, well, I started this sketch of this concept, never really got around to finishing it because, as we know, life takes hold sometimes. That's all right. We all have life to deal with. Sometimes it's not very fun. Most of the time for me, it is because I have a great support system and great people with me. But, sometimes it's different for different people. Never really know. I'll probably take these little divots I'm creating inside the petals, and there's a pretty good chance I may actually end up getting rid of these little like U shapes and replacing them with like little spikes. But for now, it just kind of helps. Through these guys here. Another one here, but I don't want to block the center portion. This is going to be the center of the flower. So I need to stay this area. Uh, something here. We can just do a little 3, 4, 5, just on the inside, and to show where the interior of the flower is. I haven't even gotten to the leaves yet, but that's great. I'll get there. This over. This one will have like a little bit of a bend here. This guy here, we can give this straight edge because things bend, they create straighter edges. Here. This one, a bit of a straight edge as well. Just gives it some more character. Although I don't like the way that that looks, because that would be drawing in this direction. I don't want to do that. As far as general flow of this flower and how I want things to be perceived, I'm essentially looking for a downward kind of angle on that kind of an arc, or an upwards angle from that kind of an arc. With more petals down here, then it's definitely looking like it's flowing down a bit more, and that's all right. I'm not super concerned about it. May actually add one more petal here over on this side, just to kind of show perspective. And that'll make it look a little bit more full. This bottom curve here is going to be super important as far as visual flow is concerned, because this curve is going to direct your eye either up or down in this direction. And it's going to follow the curve that the edges of these petals make. So, and that's exactly what I want to do. And by not having that there, it just kind of felt like open and empty a little bit. And we'll create a new layer. We'll draw leaves. I've got one stem folding over. Little guy back here. For that leaf. This direction. This one will fold over. This guy will continue down, but he's got like a little bit of a fold over. It's funny, I used to draw leaves in a very different way. I used to draw basically just like a weird, like squiggly line, right? And then I would take that and, draw another one next to it. And then that would actually give me like some of the hills and valleys in a leaf and kind of help me dictate how that leaf would go through, where the light would be reflecting off of it, what areas would be in shadow. And I've drawn some pretty cool leaves using that method. if anyone's looking for like a little leaf hack on how to make more interesting leaves, it's definitely one way to do it. This guy over here on the side, I'm probably going to redo now that I've got a more interesting leaf down that way. Just over and down. Back and up. Overlapping this petal a little bit. Up and over. So folding on itself a little bit. Then I would have one more thing down here and then getting tucked back. That'll be a lot more interesting. Once again, just nice and light, keeping it rough, not really worried about like, oh, do I have enough room for like tiny little veins on it or not? No. Now, if I had a bit more room, actually, I could probably squeeze one more guy in here. Twisting. Well, it's like a little fold over the guy. Do it again. It's one of the advantages to drawing all the time is that when in doubt, start over. It's only going to make you a better artist. Cool. Good. Little guy up there in the background. One of the things that I love about working digitally is that it's very easy to go through sides. Cool. Now that I've got that sketched out, I'll go through, switch over to my favorite outlining pen. Keep the lines on the leaves a bit thinner. We're going to keep these leaves pretty simplistic. Too much detail to it, just because this is a pretty rough sketch, pretty rough draft. And like I said, I don't know if anything will ever come to this. Spines. Those are roughed in. So leaves are sketched in, finalized. I'll hide that for now. Now I want to focus on this. Now, sometimes I like to give these peonies like a little bit of a bump in the middle, as I was mentioning before. Sometimes it just helps give them a little bit of character. It also helps me go through and determine where the center point is on each of these, and can make following and drawing my contour lines a bit easier. Plus, it can help indicate direction. That one's probably too big. Now we can just create some bumps. Stay with me. Okay. I like to kind of offset some of these bumps if I'm making it a bit more on the smooth side. I'll do like one little notch here and then the next one there. There's a reason for that. I don't want them to be too symmetrical because petals in nature are not symmetrical. Sometimes I'll do three. That doesn't look right. Sometimes I won't give them many, but I can still go through and create my visual lines to move the eye around a little bit easier. It just helps create that sense of motion. Lost them. Did one too many double taps, 2 finger taps. So that can be sitting in the right. I question myself a lot, by the way, as far as like angle goes. Now this one's a bit more on the symmetrical side, which I usually try to avoid, but it does kind of work for this piece. I think if I go straight. I try to have all of my lines coming back to converge at a single point. Sometimes you have to draw where that point is, but you all want them to go back to the base of that individual petal. So I'm drawing this and I want this to go back to the base of the petal. Petal. Sometimes I'll give him a little bit of a curve like this guy. Just helps keep things in a bit better order, in my opinion. Down. These guys are fun. That's essentially all you're going to see on that one. Now, these aren't your traditional peony flowers or peony. These are definitely a stylized version. But you draw them right, still coming across pretty awesome. This one straight across, over. Up and over. These I'll try to give them each a little bit of a bump just to kind of show that these are petals as well. This one. This one a bit more on the rounded side. For these on the side where you're really seeing a perspective on them, I always like to try to like fade them in. Yeah. Yeah. Accent lines to indicate shape. Oh. Over there. Back. Sometimes I'll give these like a little point before I bring it over. Gives it a little bit of character and shows a definitive spot where that petal is going to bend. Over like that. low. Likes too big, that's why. They don't have to be perfect petals because in nature, those petals wouldn't be perfect anyway. So it doesn't really matter if they're even or anything like that. Over, down. Sometimes I'll give the edges a little bit of an S curve before I'll give them some bumps. Once again, it just helps with the flow. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with like anything else, any other principle. Very rough, kind of peony flower. And got that couple extras. Not too bad. It's pretty rough, but gets the point across. You know, using our little tricks and value and perspective, we could go through and we could render this thing so it looked absolutely gorgeous. Oh, you're very welcome, Creatures Cave. Thank you for watching along. We add our leaves back in. We can go through with this. Always duplicate the layer before you erase anything once you've created a line drawing. Always helpful information. And we'll erase. And that'll give us that kind of overlap that we're looking for. Leaves. Okay. Get rid of all of this interior stuff where it might overlap, where we want the flower petals to kind of shine forward a little bit more. That's also why the flower petals were drawn with a much thicker outline as opposed to a thinner line for the leaves. It helps keep everything in perspective. Now I would take this one and let's take the master layers that we used, put those together and group those. We don't need those anymore, but it's always nice to have them. We'll take these two guys and we'll group these, duplicate the group and flatten it. Now we've got one solid layer that we can go through, set it as our reference layer. Here's why we want to set it as our reference layer, because we can select another layer over top of it. Our magic wand tool to select. Now we can go through spit shade sets, one of my favorite ones from Tattoo Smart. We can go through and we can start, you know, creating a little bit of value. If it was monochromatic, we could easily go through and just drop in a very quick monochromatic scheme. Sometimes for little past shadows, we want to use something a little bit smaller. Cast shadows can be a little tricky because sometimes you want to keep them nice and light. But you almost always want to create a separation between the shadowed area and that line to show a separation between the two. This would give us a bit of a shadow. We were using single light source perspective. You go through and easily see how this area would create a bit more shadow. Same thing here. Even add a bit more shadow from the way that the light is being shown. Now, the shadows would shift if I was using a different light source than top down. Top down is usually my default go-to just because it's quick and it's easy and I know it like the back of my hand. If I had a light source coming in from, say, this direction, that would be a bit of a different story. Same thing if I had a light source coming in from there, but if I had like a bottom up light source, that would also create a different set of values and a different set of shadow. For today's purposes, we're just going through and doing a quick little mock-up. Super worried about everything's, correct or whatnot. If I really wanted to spend some time on this, I could. In fact, we can hide our sketching layers. Soften it up. Up. Spread for our values. Come back in here. Close this up. We want to, like I said, today's just a rough sketch. Not really super concerned about it. That a little bit of a shadow. This will have a little bit of a shadow. A bit of a shadow on the inside, but not that much. This would have a bit of a shadow. Anything here. In fact, most of this would be shadow, but it'd be a bit lighter. Here, this would be a bit shadow. This would create a very big cast shadow. Just because of where our light source is. So a little bit of shadow on the side. If I wanted to go crazy, I could draw like tiny little like seeds on the inside of this, but for today's intents and purposes, just mocking stuff up and having fun, keeping our hand busy and getting inspired with different things. I'm not, like I said, super concerned about. Or as it rolls over would be in shadow. This part would be shadowed. Here, darker. Bottom part down. And we get a bit of that. The sky would create a pretty big cast shadow, depending on how much distance we wanted to have. Here. just a hair. Just that in here and help separate out some of the light and dark values. Because as we know, as a guiding principle, we never go dark to dark or light to light unless it's absolutely necessary to get more of a perspective effect. Obviously, certain things will have to be dark to dark in order to show that they disappear in the background. But to create separation in our elements to show that elements are separated and light values are light and dark values are dark, we have to be kind of selective about where we use our super dark. You can start to see it coming together. Or as it rolls to get a bit of a shadow. Almost like it was like, you know, chrome, but not really chrome. If that makes any sense. Sometimes what I say doesn't make sense, and I acknowledge that. Just some separation. Shadow down here now by comparison needs to be a hair darker. Here. Here. This would create another cast shadow that would be a bit darker. Too much. Blender and blend. Soften that shadow up, that value. Soften that up a tiny bit. Sometimes I'll use my blender just to kind of soften up some of the value that I've thrown in there. Especially if like I'm presenting it to a client and I just did a quick little mock-up of the value, like smooth it out because it gives it that nice, like soft kind of look. And makes it a little bit more presentable. I had found that clients like it when it's a bit of a smoother kind of presentation as far as the value goes, the amount of value, and where some of the shadows are. Creates that nice mid-tone range in there with like some of the darker tones, but not too many of them. It's nice. I can always come back through. And just darken it up a bit. Just like in tattooing, we can always add more, but we never take away. But I try not to. You can take away because you can just use your eraser. But I try to draw like I tattoo, which means you can always go darker. Can't usually go a whole lot once you go like super, super dark. Really want to try to stress some of these drop shadows and where that light's coming from. Going to give us the effect that we are looking for. Especially down here. Shadow. And if we find that we do go too dark with this, just for grins, we will remove a tiny bit of it to give it a little bit more separation between the shadow and the edge of the petal. Just help make that shadow a bit more. Soften that up a bit. It's still going to stay nice and dark. I wanted to do the same thing over here. Do that as well. Because of where these are, these petals, I wouldn't go through and create like a little bit of a separation there because I really want to show that this is shadow kind of fading out from the center of the flower, and it creates this nice drop shadow. From the rest of the flower. Might smooth it out a bit. Smooth it out, blend it out a tiny bit. But as you can tell, because these petals are a bit lighter, I'm going to keep it pretty dark underneath. I only really want to go through and keep the separation of the shadows in certain spots. So maybe I will make this and bring this all the way back into the flower, because that's just going to make these petals look even lighter. Remember, we can't have our brights without our darks. But you can get the gist of it. Little peony action for today. Hope everyone enjoyed that. Hope you guys had fun today. Hope you got something out of today's lesson. If you didn't, please email management@reinventingthetattoo.com. I'll be happy to take anything you guys might have to say to heart. Anyone has any final questions, please feel free to ask away. Otherwise, I think we're going to wrap things up for today. I wanted to thank you all very much for watching. Please keep your hands busy, stay inspired, keep pushing through it. You'll get there. Trust me, it does happen. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of time. So until next time, please do yourself a favor. Keep your hands moving. Stay inspired. Keep working harder every day. Even if it's just a little bit, try to improve a little bit more every single day. And I'll see you back here again next Sunday for the Skill Building Sunday Drawing Group here live on the Reinventing the Tattoo channel. Once again, thank you for watching, and